Hey, welcome back to Gary Brown Forging On. And I'm going to talk to you today a little about some little tips I picked up starting out, which hopefully I can pass along, maybe help you if you're starting out. Let's see, first thing I want to talk about is there's times when you want some scrolling tongs, and I was needing scrolling tongs. I just needed everything. I had nothing starting out, and so I had an Anvil, which I was lucky enough to get. A lot of people start off with whatever they can find, which is great. I just happened to luck up and get an Anvil, but pretty much everything else I had to scrounge up, and so I started needing some scrolling tongs. I needed this. It was overwhelming, all the tools I needed. So one day I was at Tractor Supply, and I don't know if you have a Tractor Supply where you're at, but you may have some other store, and they sell these 3-packs of long pliers. And I don't know why, but I happened to sit there and look at them, and I think they were maybe at the time $8 or $10 US or something. I can't even remember how much they cost. I mean, they're cheap made, but you know, it was a cheap package. It was in their little bundles. You know, they have a whole clearance bundle kind of thing there. Not clearance, but a bundle of like cheap tools. And it was packed up together. And what I did is I took the 90-degree angle one, and let's see if I can show this on here. And I just ground around the edges of it, of the end, because it had these, I don't know if they'll show up. They had these serrations on there. Anyway, they got those serrations which show up on your work, and it's got real sharp edges along the edge there. Maybe that's showing up. But so I just took a little grinder, and I just I can't really get my arm up there. I kind of ground around here and here, and you can kind of see I still got serrations down at the bottom, but the tops are smooth and round. And like I said, I picked these up 3 or 4 years ago and started using this for my scrolling. And they've never bent, they've never got messed up. It worked great. So far I haven't had a reason to even forge me some scrolling tongs. I may eventually make some little heavier duty ones for larger scrolls, but usually I scroll by hand anyway, by hammering. But I just thought, you know, something like this, keep an eye out for it, and you can then adapt them to whatever you want. You know, you could make all 3 of them into angled scrolling tongs. So that's the first tip, is, you know, learn to adapt something. This was my next tip. Now, a lot of people will go into their shop in the wintertime, and if they have say they got a wood stove in there to warm up their shop, and they fire it up, and I know guys will take big chunks, a lot bigger than this, chunk of steel, and they'll lay it on the wood stove, and they'll get it hot, and then they'll take it and they'll set it on top of their anvil and start heating their anvil up. And then they may have another piece sitting there getting hot, and when this one starts cooling off, they take it off, put it back on the anvil, put the other one, keep rotating them, and which works fine. Or what I used to do is I put a big piece of steel in my coal forge once I got it started, and I'd put like 1 or 2 in them, but I couldn't really get 2 hardly, but I could put 1 in there and get it to where it was glowing red and set it on the anvil. And then before it got too cold, I would put it back in the fire, get it glowing red, set it back on the anvil, and get the anvil warm. You don't want to work on an ice cold anvil. One, it sucks the heat out so fast, it's ridiculous. I mean, it sucks out the heat fast enough, but you know, if the steel's 30 degrees, but it can also chip. At least when I heard it can chip. I've never had it chip, but I've heard that. So I saw somebody made a suggestion. I just put an iron, get an old iron, and plug it in, and just set it on the anvil, and leave it on full blast, and just let it heat up the anvil while you're doing other stuff. So I went to a flea market, and I looked around. I was looking for an old antique, and I just couldn't find one. And I came across this one. It was $3. And I thought, well, $3, I'd give it a try. And it worked great. Got hot, red hot. I mean, not red hot, but it got hot. I had it on high, stuck it on the anvil, spent an hour or more doing some other things in the shop. Came back to use my anvil, picked it up. It's too new. Too new. Anyway, apparently these newer ones have a safety cutoff. So after it sat, I don't know if it was 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, I have no idea, but after it sat so long, it cut itself off. And so when I came back, this was ice cold, my anvil was ice cold, and I had to start all over again. And I had to keep unplugging it and plugging it and unplugging it and plugging it, and that was just a pain. So either I'm going to rip into this thing at some point and see if I can figure out the safety switch in it and disable it, or I'm going to go see if next time I'm around I don't get to flea markets very often, but the next time I go by one, I'll see if I can find, like the old like 1950s model or something. And maybe they don't have so much safety in theirs, but I also want it to work. I don't care to spend a little bit more money, but this is a quick way to do it. Just set it on there, plug it in. If it would stay on, and warm your anvil up, you could let it sit there for an hour or two. So that's my other tip, second tip. Now, you'll also get, if you can pick up some coils, now this is a smaller diameter coil spring off of a car, and then this is a little bit larger one. You can kind of see the diameter differences there. Pick you up some of this and just cut you off some chunks to make tools out of. And one thing is if you want to bend anything, bending forks, and you're fairly new at it, just take one of those, heat them up, straighten them out. This was maybe 6-7 inches long. Just straighten it out. This was out of a piece of coil spring steel. And then I just heat it up, straighten it out, and then I just bend it into a U. I clamp it into my vise, and then I got a bending fork. Real simple, quick way to do it. It's handy as can be, and even though I've got other bending forks now that I've made, I keep this around just because it comes in handy at times. So another idea for bending forks, I have this, like I said, I've got my plier scrolling tongs. I just had an old piece of scrap rebar. I hammered down flat, split it like you're going to make hot dog forks, bend it around, works great. Didn't take 5 minutes. Well, you had to heat it up, hammer it flat, but probably took more than 5 minutes. And I had to have a 3.1, and I cut this whole shape out. I forgot what I used. I can't remember if that was, I don't know if I used a bush hog blade. I don't think it was that thick. I don't know, this was just a regular piece of mild steel. I'm sorry. And then I just split it, and I should have probably opened it up more this way, but I didn't. I may go back and heat it up and open it up more. But I needed it I was taking a class, and I had to have a 3-point bending fork. And so I tried to make this in a hurry. So anyway, so what I did is I drilled the holes in here, the 3 holes, and these are actually grade 8 bolts. And so they're already pretty stout, and I just put them in through here and weld it around. Put them through and weld them. And I was using it to bend all kind of stuff. So that's a handy way to make them. And it's just pretty simple to make. You don't have to get real fancy. As you can tell, my shirt is not fancy. Could look a lot better. Next tip is, this is just mild steel, but I wanted a fuller. Now, my anvil is pretty good size, and my hardy hole is about 1.125 inches, I forgot what size. And so I can put this down inside the hardy hole and use it, but I'll use this for my fuller, and it's just mild steel. And all I did is I came back that far, hammered it flat, and then I just bent this around so that these matched up. And once I did that, basically when I knew this length, then I measured this length, and I bent it down, and then whatever was left over here, I formed into this U, and it just slides into my hardy hole, and then I can just put something in there. And even though it's mild steel, I've folded a lot of stuff with it. I've taken black pipe and folded it down to make, you know, candle stems or candle stand holders, whatever they're called, the cups, you know, the candle cups. So, you know, don't be afraid to use mild steel. And if you got plenty of high carbon steel, fine, use that. At the time, I didn't, but this has held up great for a long time now. This is what you do with scrap. This 1-inch pipe fits in my hardy hole real easy. And so I was trying to do some slot punching, and so I had nothing that was working well on my anvil. So I just took a grinder, and I took this piece of, it was just shaped like a scrap triangle piece I had, and it's probably a little over 1/2 inch thick. And I just took a grinder, made a groove in there so that when I'm slot punching, I can put it over there and punch my plug out over this little groove. And then I put a hole in there, and I heated it up, and I made some divots in there to try to use for my making rivet heads, or the forming rivet heads. Didn't have much luck with this, but it was just a try. Wasn't out much, just some scrap welded there, and didn't do much. Didn't have to worry about it. But I just throw it in my hardy, and I can use it, the flat part of it, for cutoff if I need to. Sorry. And also to start off with, depending on the size of your hardy hole, oops, trash on it. This is just some 1-inch scrap square tubing, and you clean up the end. And then I just had some scrap plate. It even has some paint on it. I don't even know if that's showing up or not. And I just welded it on. Man, did some poor welding too. But I welded that plate on, and then I welded this on vertically and welded underneath, and then made just a simple hot cut, just ground it. I don't even have it straight up and down, but I've used it I don't know how many times cutting off. I eventually got me a piece of high carbon steel, and I don't have a power hammer or even a treadle hammer, so I had to hammer this down by hand, and I made me more of a semi Brian Brazil type wedge shape. But I wanted this one because I've got a smaller anvil that I use for demos, and this won't fit in the hardy hole for it. But I can put this in both hardy holes. I can put it in my large one or my small one. So I use it exclusively now. But this one I still keep it because it works. Anyway, that's just a few tips for starting out. I hope that was helpful. Please subscribe and like it, comments. Maybe you have some different ideas, or maybe you have some questions and some things I've done that I kind of forgot about now. And so let me know, and I can either adjust or make a quick video or just answer you in your comments. Y'all have a blessed day.